were like so excited that they were like sharing their thoughts out, which was great because I mean, they were into what you were doing. So that was really good. I did think the questions you had at the end, I thought that some of them were definitely higher level. So that was good. How will you use this data that you collected to remediate or adjust instruction for the students who did not meet the learning target?
I'm not really good at remediation, but using the data that I got, I think that I would definitely like go back and like for each like free time or something that they have, I would pull them and make sure that they understand like what they needed to learn from that and go over in a different scenario or in a way that helps the student understand what they need to learn.
Yeah, and sometimes for this question, because you are only there once a week, it's sometimes it's hard because you're not able to follow up the next day. But a lot of times what I like to do is think about if you were there that week, what would you do? And how would you go from there as far as like helping them to continue with their journey? Okay, so how did the planning process impact your instruction on K through 12 student learning? So it says to consider a few of the following. So identifying the appropriate level of taxonomy, aligning K-12 student learning targets with the required standards, for instance, using a performance scale or chunking the content into smaller manageable parts, selecting materials and instructional strategies appropriate to the level of rigor, engaging all learners in the lesson. There's a long different options. How did the planning process help the students learning?
When I planned like the K through 2 student learning, I reviewed like all the levels of the taxonomy, and I wanted to make sure that they weren't like getting doled down questions that were easy for them. I wanted like a rigorous question, so I kind of pulled from an upper level, and then I also reviewed like the different things by having them write a hypothesis, which I actually didn't know at the time that they didn't know how to do that. But definitely that I think was a not a struggle, but I think it was a higher activity for them to do because they had never done one. That and the conclusion. And then I also with the materials and the instructions, I wanted them to do something that was really engaging for them that was also incorporating like a higher standard of like because they don't know what buoyancy is because like it's they know what floating is but they don't know what buoyancy is, which obviously correlates to floating. I didn't want them to get bored throughout the lesson, so obviously creating the higher level. So yeah.
I noticed when you told them to write their hypothesis, I noticed that you realized they didn't know how to do that. And so you provided a sentence stem to help them. And you wrote if, and then you started doing an example then. And I feel like that maybe wasn't something you had considered. And you could tell you were just kind of thinking off the cuff. But by doing that, you were able to help them to be a lot more successful because it got them started. So I was really proud of you for that. There were some other areas in the lesson where I think you could have done that even more, like with the conclusion and things like that. So you did a great job at the beginning, kind of thinking off the cuff. And I think after this experience, you're going to see that you're going to feel even more comfortable with that in the future. Okay. Describe the effectiveness of the instructional strategies you use to cognitively engage your students in critical content and promoting positive behaviors across all student groups.
So I think I used oh, I might have answered this wrong. Okay. I think I used the ability of like engagement and having something interactive definitely for them because it really helped them understand it and what they were learning. And I also kind of like with the hand gestures actually going back to that, like it helped them remember everything that they needed to do. So I think that helped them and it was obviously positive because all of them did it. So it helps them remember it for the future. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. You had great engagement. They were very interested in that. And they were also, I could tell that you were trying to incorporate, auditory, visual, kinesthetic, things like that. All right, as you were teaching, what adjustments did you make? We've kind of talked about this as you noticed students who were not meeting the learning target and those who were not.
Obviously, like how we said with the hypothesis, like the ones I didn't know, I kind of did the if then and then also helped them on the iPad to write it. I think also when I realized I didn't do the directions and it wasn't direct enough, going around like each group and making sure that they were doing okay.
Right. And I did notice, you were working your way around the room, which is a great strategy, especially even for behavior management and things like that. Sometimes as teachers, when we see students aren't getting it, sometimes we have to just say, all right, everybody come to the carpet. We're going to do this together. And then you can, go back and be independent. One of the things I was thinking of is this gradual release model. I don't know have you ever heard of that?
No.
So it says like the teacher does it. So it's like I do it and then we do it and then you do it.
Oh yeah, we have that on our lesson plan thing, like kind of like our lesson plans. Yeah.
Yes. And so I was thinking that may be something you may want to consider, like you do it and then they do it with you and then they go to their groups and do it. And that will definitely help them to all, I think, know the directions and what's going on. But good job circling the room and helping students. All right, discuss your comfort level, confidence, and knowledge of the critical content and pedagogy to effectively deliver this lesson. How would you improve in these areas in the future? And they are.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I did okay. I was just like, I think I need to practice more, definitely, and make sure I read through the information so I have the higher subject knowledge before I teach a lesson. I was comfortable and confident. I just was like really nervous, obviously, because it was my first time.
Right.
So that kind of like did have an impact on me as well as teaching it. So
right. I think it's to be expected to be nervous. And I know you wanted to focus on engagement. I think you did that this time. And you did have some higher order questions. You selected a lesson that was interesting to the students and fun. But I agree. I think that like practicing through, maybe rehearsing, having those cards, thinking through each step and thinking ahead at like, what might the students need me to model before I send them off to do it on their own. But I know this was your first time. And so that was, it was exciting. You got it done and you survived, right? You did great. All right. I'm going to look at the reflective practice real quick.
okay.
So the reflective practice is an opportunity for us to reflect on the things that you did in your lesson. So I would like you to please describe briefly who the students were, what you taught, what the setting was, and when and where.
Okay. So I taught at Central McKeel Academy in Miss Kearney's class. And there were, I believe, let me check, 18 students, one being gifted and 2 of them having like a 504 plan. What else was it? Oh, I taught a science lesson plan, learning about like the different steps of the scientific method, and they also learned about the different like floating, buoyancy, and sinking with a rubber duck, a rock, and milk and cookies, and we did the Great Cookie Dunk experiment. They learned how to write a hypothesis and a conclusion.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I know that was a lot of questions. Okay, so what were the 2 or 3 key teaching skills that you used in your lesson?
I use multi-sensory instruction in my lesson, fostering student engagement and positively impact student learning.
I think those were things that were definitely observed, the engagement and the multi-sensory, helping the students to learn the scientific method. So let's justify, why did you pick those key teaching skills?
I picked multisensory because in my first lesson plan that I did online, I think that I talked a lot and they mainly only got the verbal from me. Like I didn't have anything that was like they could see or they could touch yours, obviously. But I think that I need to work on that, and definitely like the student engagement and the positive impact, like both of them. I think that like I kind of lack engagement sometimes because I'll go on a like just talking like I said, and I don't really involve like something where it's going to get them like engaged and like hands on. Like I mainly like fall for like a video or a worksheet mainly for students to work on. So I think that those three were definitely ones I need to work on.
Your first field study was online, so it probably was hard to be engaging. So this was totally different. So I don't think I don't know that that's even one that we need to focus on right now, because I think you've got that. I think you know how to do that in person. It's just kind of hard online. So you should be proud of that. I think maybe the strong subject knowledge and content, that would be one that we might want to consider for next time. I'll let you think about some of the others and what you're thinking, but that's just kind of something that I had been thinking of. All right. How did the key teaching skills, the engagement, what else did you say? Fostering student engagement, the multisensory instruction. How did this impact the students? Can you give me an example?
I think it definitely impacted them because like in the beginning, how they need to be engaged, and the multisensory, I did the hand gestures, which definitely like correlated both of those because they are getting like, I don't want to say hands on, but they're using their hands and like what I'm saying, because I had them do like observation. So they're like putting their hands up to their face and they're saying it, which gets them involved, and they kind of have fun with it so they can learn it more in more than just one way.
Yeah, and did you say that there were students that remembered some of that stuff after PE? So that's really good. That's an example of them like retaining what you taught. If you were to teach this lesson again, what would you do differently and why?
I think I definitely would do differently is like having them do it in groups so they can see everything, and maybe one like how the Nutter Butter wasn't sinking all the way. I think maybe one group could have had different results than another one, and obviously like saying the directions and having the higher subject knowledge of what I know what the students need to know.
Okay. What did you learn about yourself regarding this lesson implementation?
I learned that I am very good at, I guess, having the students engaged and everything, and that I do need to not be as stressed out because they're 8 years old. So I shouldn't be stressed out about like teaching them something, and not to get ahead of myself, to practice and make sure I go through everything so I can go in the next day and know what I'm doing step by step.
I think you definitely thought about that. And I think that if you do those things moving forward, I think you're going to be really proud of the progress that you see. So thank you, Lauren, for your time today. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you.